Hello, Booktube. Welcome back to another Steve stream from your favorite streamer. I don't know if this is going to work. The last time we did a Steve stream, it worked just fine for a few minutes, and then the whole stream collapsed. No idea why. Never got to the bottom of anything like that, so no idea if it's going to happen again. I think I'm using a different machine to record this. I'm not 100% sure. Since David Murphy came over here last month and took out all of my laptops and refurbished them all, brought them all up to date, got them all updates, rebooted a lot of them in order to get them updates, cleaned them all out, and made them workable. And that sort of threw me off in terms of which ones I was actually using. So I don't know if this is the same device. I'm hoping that the Steve stream lasts until 10 past the hour. Uh, on a peaceful Sunday. This is a peaceful Sunday Steve stream. Even though being 100% Irish Catholic, I don't have any peaceful days. I'm still trying to think of it that way. It's been a largely obligation free day. I am involved in steady work related, writing related, editing related back and forths with a whole bunch of people, but only during business hours. So on Sundays, no. And it was a peaceful day. It's overcast and raw. It doesn't feel like spring at all, but otherwise completely peaceful with only a couple of exceptions. Baby, stop that. Stop that. Like, for instance, about 45 minutes ago, a little bit up the street, just on a random spot of sidewalk, there were three grown men standing in a tight triad talking to each other in an animated way. Frida and I actually walked past them on one of our walks. I kept my eyes on the sidewalk. I kept her away from them. Uh, all three of them were slightly drunk. One was more drunk than the other three, and the one who was more drunk than the other two was also high on something. Uh, Not right at all. All three of them weren't right, and they were talking and acting towards each other in the way that Confederates in crime do, not in the way that friends do. And the tallest of the three of them was armed, and they were just standing there on the sidewalk having a very intense, slightly slushy discussion. Frida and I walked past them, and all I could think was, I don't really care what you're doing. You're obviously up to something. I don't really care what you're doing. I just want you gone. Just have move this whole conversation somewhere else. Just get get somewhere else and be somebody else's problem. But they did go, so that was the only wrinkle of tension in the day. Otherwise, the day has been very bookish on a subject that I want to discuss until the chat comes up with a million other subjects to talk about. Because it's a Sunday, and I imagine that's the reason why my inbox has been full of people telling me stories about going out used book shopping. The rest of you have all kinds of obligations. You work, sometimes two jobs. You go to school, have a whole class load. You have family obligations and friends and pants and hygiene. So I guess the weekend is a time when you go out to library sales or used bookstores or whatnot. So I've had a lot of people emailing me with stories about that and also pictures uh, of their hauls, of the stuff that they're getting. People going, to library book sales where they get satchels of books or boxes of books for one flat fee just to get them out, just to get them out of the room. That gave me a little bit of an urge to go book shopping on my own. Of course, that's a ridiculous urge for me to have since I go to the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston all the time and get far more books than I need. And it's doubly ridiculous today because when I wasn't getting those emails, I was mentally, anyway, if not physically, grappling with my own print and paper book collection. Just I'm looking at them all, and it's not in the best of shape. There are books everywhere, and I don't know. This is part of the subject that I wanted to bring up is how you organize your books. Do you organize your books? I'm not talking here about organizing them on the Kindle or the Kindle app, because that's easy. You can do that in your armchair, and you can do it any way you like. And if you put one book, Carson of Venus, if you put that in adventure, you make a collection for adventure novels, fine. If you also want to put it in science fiction, fine. You don't have to move it from one to the other. You can put it in both. Whereas the print and paper books, they're a much bigger deal. when David Murphy was here, we started organizing a little. I was having space problems because I wanted biography to all fit in one place, and I was just having a brain block on how that would work. And finally, we figured out that there is a space where that will fit all of biography. It just needs moving everything. So it was really useful to have somebody else here to help me do that. It would have taken me all day to do on my own. So biography is all organized, and the other thing that moved were the books about books, the collections of book reviews and book essays and whatnot. Those all moved, and those are all now in one place. And the history, I guess, is kind of sort of organized a little, but that still leaves vast tracks here that aren't organized at all. And I'm wondering, if I organize them, will that take care of the miscellaneous piles of stuff that aren't anywhere that need to be sorted, or will it make things worse? And also, do I want to organize everything? Is your book section is your are your print and paper books entirely organized? I mean, do you have all your mysteries in one place? All your science fiction in one place? Do you do that intentionally? Did you do that from the start? There's that question, and then there's the little book room. All right, I have the rest of Hyde Cottage. Those of you who haven't been here, I have the rest of Hyde Cottage. It's just full of books from stem to stern. Then I have the little book room. It has my little bed, and uh, it is lined with floor to ceiling bookcases, except for one spot that doesn't have them. There's one spot of wall that doesn't have a bookcase on it. The lower shelf of that bookcase would be blocked by the bed. Bed is low to the ground. It's not on legs or anything. It's sitting on the ground. But it would block the bottom shelf of a bookcase that I put against that wall. So I haven't done it. And besides, I'm using the space between the bed and the wall as a place to stuff things, as a place to stuff clothing, because there's no storage here at all. The only storage in the little book room is the closet. The little book room has a deep closet, but I barely use it. I barely use it, so I walled it off. So it doesn't count as storage. So aside from that one spot that I have my eye on, I'm looking at it right now. I have my eye on it because I'm kind of thinking that maybe a bookcase there would be a good idea, just to finish the whole round about the room. But all the rest of the room is floor to ceiling bookcases. And in the little book room, any little book room that I make, I've made them everywhere I live. There isn't really much in the way of organization. The organization is the fact that the books are in there in the first place. Those are my favorite books. Those are the ones that are cut above the others. So they go in there. The only organization that tends to happen in the little book room, other than that, are the Penguin Classics that are all on one bookcase together. But otherwise, no. And the other day, I was looking at that. I spent a lot of time in the little book room with my little bean sleeping on top of me while I read and write. And I was in the little book room. I was looking at the books, and I thought, you could add a little more organization here. So I spent an hour one afternoon just in the little book room. I didn't go anywhere else. In the little book room, I pulled non-Penguin classical literature, so Greece and Rome. I pulled all my different editions of those and put them in one bookcase. Took everything off one bookcase and filled that with Greek and Roman classics. So there's that organization too, but only that. And the thing that adds to this is that there's a floor to ceiling bookcase in the little book room that's empty. And I know, because I tried it, that if I filled that bookcase, just stuffed it full of books, I would clean up the excess and the piles that are everywhere here. There's I have about 150 books that are excess and in piles just at random. If I put those all on that floor to ceiling bookcase, that would solve the problem. But I don't know that a lot of those books are keepers. I don't know that a lot of them are little book room books. I don't think a lot of them are. I think they're just read it, think about it, write about it, enjoy it, and then get rid of it. Uh, and I don't know, the floor to ceiling empty bookcase in there makes me think that maybe I should organize the whole of the little book room. I don't know. Do you do that? Do you organize your books? And if so, how meticulous are you about it? Those of you who organize your books by alphabetical by author, I don't know that I even want to hear from you. But what about just in general? Is all of your fiction together, or is it for a lot of you a question of just available space? And you've never actually done what David and I did when he was here, which is to pull everything off the shelves and then put it all back on. That's a huge undertaking. Maybe not all of you want to do that. I don't want to do that when I don't have somebody to help me. Uh, so I've been thinking about that all day because I'm getting tired of the random piles of books just excuse me, the random piles of books just on shelves or on tables. I want them to be where they belong, somewhere where they belong. And when I look at them sitting there everywhere like that, I think, well, the solution here isn't to reorganize your whole shelf collection. The solution here is to sell 1,000 books to the brattle. Just get rid of 1,000 of them, and that'll solve the space problem right there. That's always the thing I do. I do that all the time, but I don't know. I don't know. That's your peaceful Sunday Steve Stream subject is how do you organize your books? How much does it prey on you? I realize it's not going to be that big of an issue for a lot of you. Probably a lot of you have no more than 200 or 300 books, but probably there are quite a few of you listening to me who have well over 2,000 books. So it must be a question for you. That's your question from your earphone streamer for tonight. But I imagine you're all going to talk about other things as well. So let's move over to the chat and see what's going on. We'll hope that the chat continues. It just collapsed the last time I did this. I don't know why. So Street Medic is here. He says hello. Bottle in Book says peaceful until serial killer chat. So we don't have to talk about serial killers. I did that. I did that on video today. I'm not even sure I was talking about serial killers. I was talking about the smiley face killers, which might not be a serial killers at all. Might be just the imagination of the two detectives that thought it up. Uh, Street Medic says can't stay long. Got to mow the lawn before it gets dark. You actually don't. I know you think you do, and lawn dads are obsessed with these things, but you don't have to mow it at all. Uh, Jay Nicole says, hello, everyone. J. Scott Phillips is here. Is that headset to block out the street traffic or to make you look like Joe Rogan? Uh, it's required. It's Joe Rogan required. All streamers have completely non-functional. These are not Wi-Fi. These are not Bluetooth. They're just not working at all. And neither are the headphones of any of the streamers that are on that make millions of dollars every week. Their headphones aren't functional at all. They're just potheads. And I don't know if you've noticed this about potheads, but they get a fetish with protecting their heads. They wear beanies, they wear hats, they wear earmuffs inside, all that sort of thing. Something about the weird paranoia of the drug. I've noticed it concentrates them on protecting their heads, so they wear headphones all the time. Uh, Stephen Bronsky is here. I love the Steve Does Decor segment when you said the couple that they're moments away from a vicious divorce. You had me cracking up until my wife gave me a glare. Yes, wives never know what to do with me. So, Jay Nicole says, I have grocery shopping. Monet Doyle is here. Hello, Steve. The only bookstore near me is Barnes& and Noble. The one in Clayton County, Georgia is closing permanently. Yeah, that's the whole shakeup with Barnes& and Noble. Their new management style, as you might have seen on Olive's the Book Olive's channel, she did a video about Barnes& and Noble. It's got a lot of traction, a lot of people paying attention to it. Barnes& and Noble noticed it. About the new philosophy at Barnes& and Noble, James Daunt's new philosophy of smaller, more boutique-y looking stores, and that the natural concomitant of that is to start phasing out the giant superstores. So you'll see a lot of shift up like that, I would imagine. That's a shame though to see one gone. Was it an active store? Uh, Jay Nicole says, let's see if the stream is good with those headphones. Well, I wore the headphones last time, and the stream collapsed after 20 minutes. It was heartbreaking to me. I didn't know what was going on. I got one message after another in the chat saying that the whole thing had frozen. Street Medic says Steve looks like Rebel Combat Control directing an attack on the Death Star with those headphones. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. uh, well, the Death Star has an open exhaust chute. If it takes one blast from one tiny little aircraft, that blows up the whole thing. So I would have to earn those headphones. uh, uh, Jay Nicole says, warning Street Medic. Remember, no Star Wars, only Star Trek. Uh, Stephen Ronstein says, what did you think of the writing of the late Daniel Dennett? I remember reading his book on Darwin when I was younger and liking it. He also seemed to have been more aligned with you on free will. Well, of course, I liked his Darwin book, same as everybody. Uh, a lot of the stuff that he did uh, struck me as dangerously self-regardingly amorphous, which is the thing that he mocked. It was a thing that he had a properly New England scorn for. So I didn't like the drift of some of his books, but the Darwin book is wonderful. Uh, Scotty's back. I am in the process of reorganizing wall to wall bookcases in every room. I'm ripping out my bar to make room for 6 floor to ceiling bookcases for just my science fiction fantasy collection. Good Lord. All right. So not only are you doing a huge amount of remodeling, but you are definitely going to organize by subject matter, by genre. And that's fascinating to me. That is fascinating to me because my books generally aren't that way. They're not so bad as for, like, for instance, if I have Stephen R. Donaldson, the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, they're going to be together. Then they're not going to be. There's not going to be one here and one in a different room. But I don't organize much beyond that, and I don't know if I should. I don't know if that would help with the overflow. Of course, another thing that would help with the overflow is if I weren't going to the Brattle 4 times a week or getting 100 books when I have a guest here. Uh, Timothy Giles says, I love that my books are mixed. I like the idea of a Nixon biography sitting next to Rachel Carson. I do too. I do too, very much so. Even though it leads to headaches, because when my books are mixed, I'm spending time wondering where on earth this particular book I'm looking for is. But the little book room, I rather treasure that. I was at odds with myself to pull things apart in there and put all the Greek and Roman classics together. I was at odds about whether or not to do that. I ended up doing it, and now that it's done, I'm not going to undo it. But I don't know that I want to organize any of the rest of it. Uh, Street Medic says my library is organized thusly: logic slash mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, anthropology, languages, history, economics, law, psychology, the arts, religion, philosophy. Where's Sally Rooney? Where's Colleen Hoover? uh, oh, the chat jumped again. Well, I know where I was because you gave a huge catalog of your books, so we can go back to find you easily enough. There we go. Jasper says, I organize my fiction books by original publication date. You've got to be kidding me. So the same author is in 10 different places? I don't find that cumbersome. DT says, have you moved on to any other movie after Boy Kills World? What's keeping you hooked on it? Is it heroin? It could very well be heroin. No, I have not moved on. No, not at all. Not at all. I watched it again this morning. No, I have not. I have not moved on. It is just gleeful. uh, J. Scott Phillips, I have a table set up in the living room to organize and alphabetize nonfiction, and the dining room table for books I need to get rid of. That's another subject altogether. Is where you people get rid of your books, or do you get rid of them? For me, it's easy. The books go in the front door and out the back door to the Brattle van. Getting rid of them is easy, but I know that's not as easy for some people. Tolstoy 111 says, "Hi Steve, how will you be making an Emmanuel? Will you be making an Emmanuel Kant tricentennial tomorrow?" I'll dedicate one of my daily bowel movements to that august event. I will be paying attention tomorrow, more attention than is good for me, to the news, to the the only criminal trial that Donald Trump is ever going to sit for begins tomorrow morning. Jury is will take their seats and opening arguments will start. So I'll be paying attention to that. I won't be paying attention to the Kant tricentennial. Bottle Imp books. There's a rough order. Irish lit together, books on religion, history, etc. But books migrate into other rooms. New things arrive. That's kind of what I'm like. I make a rough kind of order, but I use my books. They're not decorations at all. I use them. I go and consult them. And I don't consult them standing there. Usually, I don't consult them standing there because usually I've pried myself away from her nibs, who's waiting eagerly for me to come back, even though she doesn't give me the time of day once I'm there. She doesn't like me to be far away. So I grab the book and come back. And then when I'm done with it, I just put it down on the footlocker or on the nightstand. And then maybe I notice after a week, oh, that's still there, but I've already used it for what I needed it for. So I move it somewhere else, but I don't put it back where it belongs. And eventually that morphs the whole collection. I'm amazed that the sections that David Murphy and I did are still in roughly the same shape. I'm amazed that that stayed true. Uh, DT says, have you checked out Shogun? Uh, no, Shogun is not Boy Kills World. Boy Kills World is all I have checked out. Jasper says, I'm very glad my smiley killer comment is wasting so much of your time. Yes, Jasper Antonelli is the original villain here. He's the one who turned me on to this idea. And when he first said it, I thought, oh, this must be a serial killer that I haven't heard of. But it's not. It's not. It's either the ultimate serial killer story or it's nothing at all. or it isn't real at all. And that gives it enough ambiguity so that it is dangerously addictive rabbit hole territory. Mark says, my problem is that when I start categorizing, I start and never stop subcategorizing, and I end up having to discern which of the innumerable subcategories a particular book belongs in. Yeah, yeah, which, as I said, that's no problem at all if you're dealing with an ebook library because you can make as many subdivisions as you want. But print and paper books, I would think the point of organizing would be to help you know where they are, right? I mean, you librarians, I'm sure you would agree with that. I would think that would be the whole point, that you would organize them to help you know where they are. And it seems to me that after a certain point of subcategorizing, that you'd be working against that aim. Uh, Leo Perkara says, "Hello, Steve. Don't ban me from your Discord, but have you read all the books on the Forgotten Realms series subgenre? I don't know what to call it. Well, I don't have a Discord, right? There are other Discords, and thanks to the patience of one of you, Discord is no longer frightening to me. I am, excuse me. Uh, I am now back acquainted with it. I have reactivated my account, but I haven't set up a Discord of my own. I don't. I don't imagine what that would be like. It'd be one more thing to pay attention to. But I can't ban you from my Discord, and I wouldn't ban you from this chat either, because you're not asking me, have I read War and Peace? You're asking me if I've read a whole series of books, the Forgotten Realms books. I don't know what to call them either. They're certainly, shared continuity. I haven't read them all. I've read a couple of them, and I didn't like the ones I read. I've been having second thoughts about that, of course, because I watch Liam's Lyceum on BookTube, and he is reading all the Forgotten Realms books. And he's not a dumb reader, so that's the thing about BookTube, is that you watch people and you realize, okay, our reading tastes might not coincide at all, but I know you're a real reader, so for me anyway, that means I'm going to start to think about the things you're talking about. I guess, I mean, if I went to the Brattle Bookshop next week, which could happen, if I went to the Brattle Bookshop next week and out in the sale lot on the dollar carts, there was just a row of Forgotten Realms mass market paperbacks, I might get 10 of them and read them. I'm not against it, but no, I haven't read them all. No. Uh, MWER, I usually just organize by genre, but then the way they look like. Then by the way they look like. What does that mean? So you put all the same publisher together? All the same livery together? Surely not color. Uh, Tolstoy 111 says B&N has a new run of classics in the editions that look exquisite on the shelf, but apparently fall apart when read. They seem to be designed for decor for people who don't read. That was one of my problems with some Barnes and Noble hardcover classics that they made years and years ago. Is that I don't know if the book fell apart, but certainly the decoration, the coloring or the imprint of the cover would rub right off with almost no work at all. It would rub right off. This is my same problem with the Penguin hardcover drop classic line that with what's her name doing the cover design, Coralie Bickford. That was my same problem with those little Penguin hardcovers are a great idea, but if you have Homer on the shelf and you pull it off 3 or 4 times, you're going to be rubbing the stuff off right away on the cover. DT says, speaking of Clavel, what did the English adventurers writers know about writing adventure stories? What did they do that was so attractive to readers for a century? English adventure writers. Not sure I know what you mean. DT goes on. I don't know of any modern equivalents, maybe Crichton or Clive Cussler. Well, I don't know what the modern equivalent is that we're talking about here. English adventure writers. You mean John Buchan? Is that who you're talking about? Or I'm not sure of the original reference here. JLK says, hi, Steve. I'm listening while packing all my books for a move. Oh, no. Oh, no. I don't anticipate leaving Hyde Cottage except feet first. What's the matter, baby? Oh, what's the matter? You like my headphones? uh, but if I ever did, God forbid, if I ever moved, I know what I would do. And it would be a fairly easy decision. I would just get rid of everything. I wouldn't, no packing or anything like that. If I had to do it, it's not worth the agony. I'd keep probably 100 books, 2 boxes of books, 3 boxes of books, and I get rid of everything else. Just use an e-reader. just do e-reading this. And I agonize over all this stuff because it's here and because the Brattle's here and because the thrill of the hunt. But if it came down to something practical like that, where I've got to spend 3 days packing, 4,000 pounds of books, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I'd just get rid of them all. Uh, J. Scott Phillips is back. The B&N that used to be on my drive home every day has been closed for over a year due to a fire. Well, if it was a gigantic superstore, they might not reopen it. They might be looking for a smaller location with do more of these boutiquey things that the new owner of Barnes and Noble wants. What's the matter, baby? Oh, you're gonna come down here? Gonna get some feet yoga? Oh, 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 there you go, baby. You gonna do some digging or are you just gonna sleep? Oh, there we go. Let's see. Hannah's Books is here. Maybe the headphones crashed the chat. You might need to take them off. I'm like Joe Rogan and Tim Pool. I've had them riveted to my head. Scott Jones says the issue I face is that I have home books and office books, but each week I'm at the office and want a home book or vice versa. It drives me mad. I can imagine. Oh my God, two locations of books. That's got to be what Mark Richardson feels like. He's got his library and then he's got his home books. He's got more books in his home than he has in his library. Uh, Steve Bronstein says is responding to J. Scott Phillips. Uh, I recently watched and enjoyed your vids about experience reading the Western canon. Eyes on the prize, you okay? He's not the star here. I am. Okay. J. Scott Phillips says the next closest BNN to me has been closed for almost a year while they are supposedly building a new one miles further away. So no BNN anymore for Scotty. What are the alternatives? Do you have any alternatives? So many people that I talk to in every month, they either have the big Barnes and Noble that's fairly soulless and has no backlist that they go to that's 100 miles away, but it's worth a trip. They go there once a week, drive all the way there, park, stay, shop, get a little something to eat or drink in the cafe, then drive all the way home. And if they don't have that, they have a charity shop like Goodwill, and that's it. The charity shop might have one shelf of books that never gets replenished, and that's it. For in-person book shopping, that's all the options that they have. Uh, DT, oh, okay, it's DT. So we just have to find him. That's all. He's next. There we go. What do you think of Cory Doctorow's nonfiction versus fiction? He's suddenly popping up on my YT feed for his enshiftication thesis. Just read his fiction. Scott Jones says, I always organize by subject, by the way. Nathan says, I believe the sexy influencer aesthetic is to organize by color. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I'm not a full sexy influencer, so I'm never going to do that. J. Scott Phillips, yes, I organize my books by genre and subgenre, then alphabetically by author. Good Lord. Oh, I'm not going to be doing that. No matter what I end up doing here, it's not going to be that. It wouldn't stay true. It wouldn't stay true. I add too many books too fast to do that. I'd be pulling books off shelves and reorganizing everything every single week. Uh, Street Medic says Daniel Dennett's Consciousness Explained was a good effort, and his multiple drafts theory is probably correct as far as it goes, but he doesn't explain consciousness itself. Okay, I don't know what that means. He doesn't explain consciousness. I'm not sure what that means. I've read his explanations of consciousness as an emergent property of a complex brain. Do you mean more than that? Uh, Nick Piccarilli says, I organize by genre, but never alphabetize. So I'm kind of thinking of doing that. I mean, I've kind of sort of done that. All the histories together, all the biographies together, all the book chat is together. There are 4 shelves of graphic novels. There aren't graphic novels anywhere else. They're all in that one place. They aren't organized any more than that, but they're all together anyway. All the romance novels are together. So I guess I do that. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. I've got piles of miscellaneous books that have just been, you know, that have been here since March. David and I went book shopping just every day when he was here. Got everything that we saw that was of any interest at all, filled the car. And then since then, I've gone to the Brattle a dozen times, and each time I come back with a pile of books. And all of those are just tending to be piled all together unless I need the book. If I need the book or I'm going to use it or read it right away, then it gets pulled out of those piles. But otherwise, they're just sitting here and I'm not dealing with them. And I absolutely do not want to do. to do what I'm afraid my inclination is, which is just let all these miscellaneous things sit here until the next time David comes to visit. That can't be. That can't. I've got to take care of it before then. Uh, the Spaminator is here. Blah. The worst has happened. I went to a library sale, found almost nothing, struggled to fill a bag. I've hit a point where I've bought most of what I want. They're just waiting to be read now. Well, I don't know about the bought most of what you want. I don't know about that, but today was a day for library book sales. I was getting emails and pictures from all and sundry who went to library book sales today. I don't have a car, and in the normal course of events, I don't know anybody who has a car, so it's not like not like I could have done it anyway. Uh, I'm not sure that I would have, even if I did. If I had a neighbor who had a car and I trusted them, I'm not sure that I would. It would mean leaving Frida. I probably wouldn't have done it. But a lot of people did, so I've been seeing a lot of their hauls. It's making me very jealous. J. Scott Phillips is back. It's not so easy to get rid of books here. No Brattle trucks in the neighborhood. I have to truck them myself, which I rarely get around to doing. Yeah, that seems to be a problem with a lot of people. I imagine that it partially fixes itself because I would imagine that people that don't have an easy way to get rid of books don't acquire quite so many books, but maybe not. Maybe I'm giving way too much self control to book addicts. I would be lost without it. I'd be up to my eyeballs in books without it. Because I didn't just get. I'm not talking just about the stuff that I go and get. I'm talking about the stuff that comes to me. So I'm glad when I unload on the Brattle. Hannah's Books is back. I order by date to a degree, by author organized in rough chronology and basic location, and then books in pub date within an author section. Of course, I'm always pulling books out and leaving them out. Well, okay, those two things seem to me to be in opposition to each other. One is extremely meticulous. I would love to do that. But I don't bother to do it because of two, because of the second part. Because I'm always pulling things out and leaving them out or putting them back where it was convenient, but not where they originally were. I can't imagine sustaining that myself. Uh, Street Medic says getting rid of books is like trying to decide which kid to kick out of the house. So all of them? uh, Tolstoy 111. I organize my lit by author's year of birth. The mere act of looking at a shelf is a lesson in literary history. Good Lord. Oh my. Freeman says moving completely to ebooks. I have about 100 physical books left. When I'm done with those, there will be no more. Well, this is of course a kind of dream of mine that all the books I have are the ones in the little book room and there aren't any anywhere else. So dedicate the walls to sofas or end tables or whatever normal people do when they don't have bookcases everywhere. DT says a Trump trial has already lost a juror, so to speak. Your prognostication is veering into correct territory. I'm now expecting to hear something awful any day. Any other prognostications? Well, the Trump trial lost two jurors. Two of them said, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm worried about my physical safety because the former president of the United States is a mob boss who will absolutely will not. People say, you can't blame him for what his followers do, but he absolutely will not go out of the courtroom for one of his insane, accordion diatribes and say, I don't want any of you to do anything to any of these people. No calls, no emails, no violence of any kind. He absolutely will not do that. And the only question that he had about the guy who set himself on fire outside the courtroom was whether or not he was a Trump supporter. So, so he can be blamed for what his followers are doing. But in terms of prognostications, you've heard them already. I have two prognostications, and tomorrow starts the clock on one of them. Because in the course of deliberations, I think this trial will probably take a month. And in the course of that month, a sitting juror, is going to be murdered by a Trump cult member, by a red hat. And again, there's going to be a stochastic levels of deniability. So Trump is going to be able to say, and his defenders are going to be able to say, he didn't do this. He might be in jail at that point anyway. The judge might decide to revoke his bail. The judge should long since have decided to revoke his bail. But whether he's in jail or not, he won't be charged with that crime. Someone will be charged with that crime. The murderer will go to jail and do life for Trump, like so many hundreds of other people are doing time for Trump. But Trump won't be charged with it. But that will happen. That's prognostication number one, is that a Trump cult member is going to kill a juror. And prognostication number two happens at the end, which is that Trump is going to be acquitted. But that's it. I don't have any prognostications other than that. I don't even have a firm prediction about whether or not the judge will revoke his bail. The judge would have revoked the bail of anyone else by now, literally anyone else in the country. I don't know how familiar any of you are with the legal system, but the judge will revoke bail for no reason whatsoever. They'll do it the smallest justification. You so much as look at them funny in the courtroom for one brief arrangement, you don't even have to say anything, and they'll say take him away. Uh, So diatribes calling the judge a deranged lunatic, it's ridiculous. It's a two-tier justice system, definitely, but it's all in Trump's favor. No one is above the law except Donald Trump. Uh, let's see here. Mark says the books I inherited from my grandfather are all together. They're a category of their own. Oh, that's sweet. It's a mixture of Italian poetry, Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Hungarian history, Da Vinci's notebooks. We can't mention Italian poetry without telling me who. Who are the Italian poets? Hmm? I would love to know. I want to know if your grandfather and I have similar tastes. I bet we do. I bet I've written about some of them, especially if they're 20th century or 19th century Italian poets. Oh my. Mark says that little section of my shelf transcends genre. It's just where I go when I miss my grandpa. He annotated his books so I get to talk to him. Oh, that is wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. I don't have anything like that myself. I kick myself that I don't, but it never occurred to me to save my father's books. That never occurred to me at all to do. I should have, but I remember what they were, but I didn't save the actual volumes. And he did annotate. So yeah, good on you for doing that. The Spaminator on organization. The Spamolaire library is divided like this: horror, science fiction and fantasy, general fiction, nonfiction slash history, classic literature, reference. So you divide by subject matter. And if you get a new book, you make room in the different section. Hannah's Books is here. I'm terrible at figuring out where I should shelf nonfiction. The fiction is a whole lot easier, and what I was referring to above. I don't imagine you having much nonfiction. I, that's probably a mistake on my part. Matt Sheridan says, "Happy Sunday, Steve," and to my fellow guys, guys, guys. Well, I've got the headphones on, so you're all guys, 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 and the stream appears to be staying alive. Uh, which you'd think that reference would put the Bee Gees song "Staying Alive" in my head. But those of you who want an earworm update, the Moody Blues fell in no time at all. The Wildest Dreams by the Moody Blues had replaced my earlier earworm, which was "Bye Bye Bye" by NSYNC. It had replaced that earworm for a blissful day, and then "Bye Bye Bye" came back. I don't want to be your fool in this game for two. So I'm leaving you behind would be the next line, but I'm not leaving it behind. Apparently, I am doomed to bye, bye, bye. uh, Tolstoy 111 says, okay, but you did notice the Byron death bicentennial articles on Friday, right? Uh, I've noticed there's been a lot of Byron writing everywhere. I'm not sure what articles you're referring to, but he's been all over the literary reviews. Scott Jones. Oh, Scott Jones is the chat has jumped. We will go and find him. We said his name. We have invoked him. There we go. Oh yes, the penguin cloth bounds are tragic. The designs are pleasing, but they should have figured out how to permanently fox the foil to the cloth. Such a disappointment. Well, I don't know the terminology, but yeah, it's immediately noticeable that you can't actually use them as books. I'm not talking just about taking them in and off a shelf. I'm talking obviously about putting them in and out of a bag to read them. The glory of Penguin Classics is that you can take them anywhere. And those hardcovers are the perfect size, and they are durable. They have the built-in bookmark and everything. So if you can content yourself with rubbing it until it's completely blank, so you absolutely do not know what book it is until you open it, but you shouldn't have to content yourself with that at all. Matt Sheridan says, any updates about your serial killer video? Serial killer video. Uh, what serial killer video are we talking about? I There's a serial killer project, a written project that is still up in the air. I think it's likely, but it hasn't been final, and nothing more has been done on it. That'll start tomorrow. That's the bliss of a nice, peaceful Sunday Steve stream, is that nobody is around on Sunday. Nobody. So there's no need to check the business side of my inbox at all. Nobody. The Grand Prix starts up at start of business tomorrow, but not until then. Matt Sheridan says, "Don't forget about Tim Pool's beanie is surgically attached to his bald head." Yes, he doesn't never takes it off. Ridiculous. DT says by adventure writers, I mean Buchan, Stevenson, Kipling, Haggard, Doyle, Clavell. Okay, all right. Well, there are a lot of those. They have a lot of successors, right? It's not just you named two people that I'm not remembering, but that the genre still goes on. Right? It still goes on even today. Uh, Follow Smoke says, "Oh wow, I didn't know Jennifer Brooke passed away. What in hell? Yeah, yeah, we lost a really good booktuber, really good fun booktuber. It's just a it's been the last year on BookTube. This little corner of BookTube has been a real pointed reminder that although we create this little fantasy world that we all go to visit every day, where we talk about books and personal idiosyncrasies and lots of little in jokes and whatnot, we still live in the real world where people can fall and break an arm, where people can get a cancer diagnosis, where people can have their house burned down. Todd the librarian lost everything; his whole house burned down, and people can sicken and die. We can lose people. It's or the tragedy that struck Scott from the Bookish Bryants. It's just this is happening all over. It's happening left, right, and center, and a lot of it's happening off camera. There are quite a few booktubers that are dealing with major setbacks like this in their lives that are choosing not to talk about it on camera. It's all bunched together. And thanks to the nature of the community that we have here, which is at least as much personal as it is subject oriented, it hits. It really fits. You really feel it. Um, Bottle in Book says, when I moved from Scotland to Poland, I gave most of my books away, maybe 1,000. I've since built a new library of books, but I've moved country again. There will be another giveaway. I would imagine moving countries with books. Matt Sheridan says, this weekend I picked up The Inimitable Jeeves. It's my first ever venture into Woodhouse. Oh my. Oh my. Stephen Bronstein, if it was Jimi Hendrix instead of Erasmus behind you there, I would have thought I was watching the JRE experience. No, it's Erasmus. Uh, the View from Diamond Towers. I don't think I know that name. Hello, Steve. Happy Sunday. Loving the headphones. You look like you are about to spin a mighty DJ set. No, no, this is not disc jockey. This is streamer. So instead of spinning a mighty set, I'm going to say that the moon landing was fake or that vaccines don't work, something like that. Trip says, my local BNN is incredible. I love stories like that. I know they vary from store to store, but I love hearing that. I heard BNN did a huge redesign around 2019. Mine has tons of good books, but too expensive to buy more than two or three at a time. The magazine section is amazing, though. Yeah, at the end, when we had a Barnes Noble in Boston, at the end, I was going just for the magazines. It was incredible to browse. Just went on forever and ever, every title in the world. Street Medic says, don't know about Kant's tricentennial, but I did throw a party for Andreas Vesalius' 500th birthday because if you're going to have a personal hero, it might as well be a grave robber. No one showed up. Yes, I don't doubt that no one showed up. Up Down says, good evening, Steve. What's the topic tonight? No stressful topic. This is a peaceful Steve stream, a peaceful Sunday Steve stream. As far as I know, no urgent news has broken during the day. Urgent things are happening, but no urgent story has broken, unless that's changed while I've been on the Steve stream. I've been keeping a very, very distant eye on the news and instead just concentrating on reading and writing in the Bean. The Bean has moved from her spot. She's now next to me. And she has, I don't know if you could tell, she has trapped a hand. So I only have the one hand now. But I've been intentionally keeping the day nice and peaceful. Matt Sheridan says, speaking of Dennett, I personally feel the New Atheists were a negative influence in many ways. Uh, I don't know what ways you'd be talking about. Uh, I'm not sure. A negative influence. I don't know what that means. Scott Jones says, I'm just close enough to Pittsburgh Metro to have a local BNN, but just far enough that I don't have access to close by indie bookseller. I'd much rather choose the indie. Would you really? Well, is your local BNN good though? Anyway, and Pittsburgh, of course, is you're not intending it, but you're almost drawing me back into a smiley face killer. So I'm trying not to do that. View from Diamond Towers is back. I have two rooms, one for fiction and poetry, one for nonfiction. I have several subcategories of the latter: science, essays, cinema, history, generally alphabetical by author. See, I wouldn't. I don't know. I think I would reject doing something like that because I worry that I would just start to not see the section. if it were too regimented, I think I would stop seeing the books, and I don't know, maybe that wouldn't happen. DT says, "What do you think of James Lee Burke? Is he a great storyteller? How do you like his prose? I read Morning for Flamingos, and it worked on me in spite of my best efforts." Oh, he's really good. He's really good. If you're reading it, if it worked on you, I'm sure that's because you were sensing that he's telling a really good story and really good, effective prose. Doesn't have to be Dostoevsky. I would say go with it. You'll really like him. J. Scott Phillips, Siva, I haven't done any videos about reading the Western canon, Sherlock Holmes canon a little, but glad you enjoyed them. Yeah, I didn't recognize that either. Not quite sure what's going on there. JLK, I'm leaving New England after 15 years. I'm landing in Saratoga, and I'm very excited to have ready access to one of my favorite used bookstores again, Lyrical Ballad Bookshop, a bookstore. You're leaving New England. Why would you do such a thing? uh, Scott Jones says, "Here's a hot question. Has anyone had a book that stunk so bad you couldn't stand to see seen selling it or donating it, and so you squirrel it away somewhere?" Well, but you're not asking questions of them. You're asking questions of me, right? It's not like you're not going to somebody else's house and saying, "Oh, by the way, what do the rest of you think of this?" You're talking to me, right? Uh, that has never been true with me, no, because I never sell books just a bag at a time. I sell them a pile at a time, a mountain at a time. So no one's paying attention to individual titles. Uh, Hannah's Books says, "If I'm not meticulous, there is a hurricane." And yes, looking at the shelves helps me think about literary and historical context. Boy, that doesn't happen with me. Leo Percara says, "I don't organize anything. I don't have that many books, but the thin ones are impossible to find sometimes." Street Medic says, "That judge needs to throw Trump in jail for contempt and only let him have access to his lawyer." Well, Trump hasn't committed contempt, but he has violated the terms of his probation. He's out on leave. He's not a free citizen. He doesn't get that, of course, but he has terms of release, and he's violated them over and over and over again. The judge was specific. This judge was incredibly specific, and Trump zeroed in right exactly on what he shouldn't do, which has led commentators to say that he is trying to get himself arrested. He has said, "If you throw me in the clink," where Stephen Miller gets this information, this terminology, I don't know, but that if you throw me in the clink, I'll be a new Nelson Mandela. But like I've said, uh, Trump is an intensely manufactured product. His teeth are not his own. His hair needs an hour and a half, 90 full minutes to get it ready. It doesn't look anything like what you see. And there's a long, elaborate process necessary to get it to look the way it does when it's on camera. And that's to get it to look that way and also to stop it from looking that way. Plus incontinence issues, lots of them, lots of other issues as well, including rumored drug addiction. All of that makes when it's time for Trump to go to bed, to actually go to bed at 3 in the morning, that takes people to do. He can't do it on his own. And it's a long, meticulous process. And then it has to be duplicated in the morning in reverse. I don't think it's dawned on him that if he's remanded for 3 days, he's not going to get that. It's just going to be an ordinary person. He's not going to get anything like that. He's not going to be in control even of what he eats. And if there are any chemical dependencies, they will be stopped. There won't be anything coming in and out that isn't monitored. So I don't we will see. That whole story ratchets up on Monday. On Monday, it's the real thing. No more delays, no more appeals to the Supreme Court or, the United Federation of Planets or anything like that. The trial starts on Monday, and nothing stops the trial other than a bomb threat. So the trial will go on. Trump is dead bang guilty. A person guilty on the exact same evidence of the exact same crime was sent to prison. That person is going to testify that I did it for him. I didn't benefit from this crime at all. He did. I did it for him. I told you this 3 years ago. It's still true. I did it at his behest. I have all the records to prove that. So it shouldn't be even a question mark. But instead, anyway, Matt Sheridan says, "Have you seen the stories that have come out in recent weeks about Crowder, Stephen Crowder? The guy is an even bigger monster than I thought." Yeah, the stories just keep leaking. And there's a certain rockfall element to that. The more people who risk or push right up against their NDAs, the more people will be able to do it, because Crowder might maybe be able to sue Not Gay Jared if he quasi breaks the terms of his NDA, which he hasn't technically done, but he's done enough to make people feast on it for days on end and stories and chatter. But if 10 people were to do that, well, Crowder might legally go after Not Gay Jared, but he can't go after 10 people. And there's no such thing as a class thing. He'd have to go after each one of them individually, and he can't do that. So think about NDAs. Trump has NDA'd probably 10,000 people in 35 years. No exaggeration. Probably 10,000 people. If all 10,000 of them decided to break the NDAs at once, he couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't stop them. Uh, Woo Woo says, what was his favorite book? No idea what that means, or even exactly what it says. Oh, and we lost the chat. Let's go back to his favorite book. There we go. Rena is reading. I think we need to add murder by influencer charges to the same way we once needed to make organized crime laws. Trump is the most blatantly egregious user of this, but there are others. That reminds me of the whole Ed Piskor thing. A lot of you won't know this. You don't know comics. There was a comics artist and writer and commentator on a channel on YouTube called Cartoonist Kayfabe. One of the two people of that channel was a guy named Ed Piskor, who was edgy and dorky and lived and breathed comics. And allegations came to light against him. The person who was at the center of some of those allegations recanted them almost immediately. But it didn't matter, because the mainstream comics media, the mainstream comic book world, Marvel and DC and all the major alternate titles, are completely ideologically captured by alt-left zealots who want to kill people. And they did. They dogpiled on Ed Piskor. They put pressure on all the people around him to dogpile on him, and he killed himself. And in the suicide note that he left, he said, I was murdered by social media, by a social media mob, and he named people. He named the people who organized the mob who killed him. Uh, and in response, I think the comics commentariat world on YouTube was kind of stunned that this happened. And one of those commentators, a channel called Comics Matter, uh, he'd been saying for years that these digital lynch mobs were eventually going to kill someone. And when it finally happened, he made a series of videos reacting to the fact that Ed Piskor was murdered. And in one of his videos, he just flat out says that what happened to him will certainly in 10 years be illegal. There'll be law. The law hasn't caught up to the offense, but it certainly will. And so when you say murder by influencer, something is going to have to happen here. Yes, when the result is murder and also the intent is murder, then it doesn't really. We've got to make the law account for the fact that the people with the intent who get the result aren't actually doing the thing themselves. We've got to make laws that account for the stochastic middle ground, and nobody's done that yet. Uh, so uh, we will see. Uh, Woo Woo says your dad's. Oh, what was my dad's favorite history book? It was one particular book on World War II paratroopers. Hannah's book says tons of history, more than fiction, and tons of biography and autobiography. Oh, God, I didn't know that. DT says my organization scheme is booked by size. I feel like such a heretic. I only organize by size for the oversized art type stuff because there are only some shelves here that'll fit those, and not others. So I have two custom made bookcases in the little book room that are thin, and the shelves are very tall. So those are where all those things go. DT says the few paperbacks are together. The large Calvin and Hobbes and comics take up half a shelf. Classics are all together. Street Medic says my grandmother was a college professor of literature slash music, and my grandfather was a deacon, although I'm not religious myself. And my father was an engineer, so we have a very eclectic library. Tolstoy 111, I meant that Byron died 200 years ago this Friday. That's been driving the attention this year. Well, what attention there has been. Sure, yes. J. Scott Phillips says the bleak and barren Sundays have been replaced by Stevestreams. They are. I'm very happy to see that this Stevestream has not collapsed. No idea what happened last time. Tolstoy 111 says there's also the Booktuber who turned out to be a child predator. Right. That was the one I was leaving out. But yeah, yeah, that was a blow. Absolutely. To read about that in the news, get all sorts of notice about that. And who knows what the next thing is that's coming? A death. I would imagine another death is coming. It could be any of the stories that we've heard so far. I mean, or something out of the blue. It's I'm not extra whaling here because it's real life and that's what real life is like. I guess in a way, in a weird kind of way, I'm celebrating not the bad parts, but the fact that we have established such a real feeling community that these hit you in real ways. It doesn't feel like a disembodied entertainer on a platform is having problems. It feels like someone you know is having problems because it is someone you know having problems. That's a positive side to all this negative stuff, definitely. Uh, Scott Jones says, I still can't conceive how Sean Stanfast got all those books of his moved even in country. We had help. That's what I was talking about. That's the positive side of this booktube community is that he put out the call for local booktube people, either booktubers or viewers or both, to come and help him, and got help. That's I imagine if I put out the same call, I'd get help. I thought I'm going to. I'll just get rid of them. Thank you very much. I'll put out a call to the Brattle. Bring two vans. J. Scott Phillips, with these B&Ns gone now, there's only one within 15 miles. 20 years ago, there used to be a retail bookstore every few blocks around here. Yeah. Street Medic says, I still have some of the books from my family's library, but most are lost, which is probably why I'm reluctant to get rid of the books. I understand H.P. Lovecraft's lost when his grandfather died. Yeah, I wish that I had been more zealous about keeping books. I have one or two that have any kind of genuine longevity to them. Choco says, hi, Steve and Frida. Frida is right next to me. She has completely captured one of my hands, so I can't move it at all. So, Mark says the book of Italian poetry that I inherited from my grandfather is an anthology simply entitled "An Anthology of Italian Poems, 13th to 19th Century," selected and translated by Lorna De Lucci. Okay, I'd love to know who's in there. I'd love to know who's in there. I uh, I know quite a few uh, late 18th, 19th century, early 20th century Italian poets and love them. I love the things they were doing. Uh, the View from Diamond Tower says, have you seen The Holdovers? The Brattle Sailot makes a cameo and instantly recognizes it just from your descriptions of it. Yes, I have seen The Holdovers. I squeaked it in right before I was totally consumed by Boy Kills World. And I didn't like it. I'm in the minority. I didn't like the movie. Uh, Mark says it's bilingual, published in 1967 by Biblio and Tannen. Tucked into the book is a piece of paper on which he copied by hand one of his favorite poems from the volume. Wow. Wow. Matt Sheridan says, are you a fan of James Elroy of his books? Yes, he's a lunatic, but his books I love. Absolutely love. Mark says, I'll take some pictures of the book and email them to you. That would be wonderful. You know, that would be wonderful. I would love that. Kevin JN says you should wear your headphones for your CPL book of the week. You need a tabletop microphone and a cigarette smoldering beside you, and whiskey on the rocks would also set the mood. No, no. The books of the week is entirely family friendly. Woo Woo says, Steve, you genuinely look vibrant this stream, like you came back from a holiday well rested. I don't know what that means. It's the headphones, I assume. But I'm not. I'm not like a lot of people. When I relax completely. I don't hold over stress the way a lot of humans I know do. I guess it's because when I've got a long stretch of unstructured time, a long afternoon where I don't have anything preying on my mind, I shift into Frida's world, which is entirely in the present. It's entirely emphatic and it's entirely non-haunted. There's no worry, there's no pressure or anxiety or anything like that. I shift out of that world to come back to do human things, but I feel very, very, I don't know about vibrant, but I feel well rested, definitely. Uh, oh, the, the chat jumped and it jumped before I could name the next person. Here we go. Street Medic. My preference is my local used bookstore, but I frequent B&N and Books a Million too. If I had a Books a Million near me, I would go to it a lot. J. Scott Phillips, except for a couple small used bookstores, Anaheim is becoming a book desert, unless you count little free libraries, which are everywhere around here. Yeah, I think there are only three little free libraries within easy walking distance of me and the Bean. I think that's true. Uh, but that's terrible. That's a terrible thing to hear. Street Medic says, I need to mow the lawn, but my resolve is dissolving before my eyes. You don't actually need to mow the lawn. Don't actually need to do that. J. Scott Phillips, never fight uphill, me boys. I know. I know. Yeah, it sounds like Robert E. Lee, doesn't it? As he never fight uphill, me boys. He said that a couple of times at Gettysburg. Wow, Gettysburg, Gettysburg, huh? Gettysburg, huh? Wow. Yeah, Lee famously said that right before he ordered Pickett's charge. I wonder what direction Pickett's charge was walking in. Ridiculous. Guy's such an embarrassment, just on every level. Uh, Bottle Imp books regarding Trump and his cult. I was just relieved to see the Ukraine funding finally go through, despite the efforts of weirdos like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz. Now, Matt Gaetz is a little bit in the news recently. Every once in a while, little rumbles were caught out of the ethics committee that is investigating him. Uh, every once in a while, new rumbles will come out of there. They are definitely not stopping. They are definitely investigating. He's so dead bang guilty. Again, it's like a mini Trump, where a Confederate that did all the same things that he did and filmed him doing them went to jail, but he did not. Because I guess his influence in the state of Florida or whatever. I don't know what the reason is, but yes, yes, uh, a funding bill was passed, billions and billions of dollars. Unfortunately, a lot of those billions of dollars are going to Israel. That's not going to do any good for Joe Biden's reelection campaign. But a lot of it will be going to much needed to Ukraine. Who knows how many thousands of Ukrainian soldiers died during the interval, and whose blood is directly on Marjorie Taylor Greene's hands. But the one positive of this, aside from aid flowing again, is that every one of these little, excuse me, every one of these little victories for normality, for the normal American stance on anything, uh, I would hope undercuts the power of Marjorie Taylor Greene in the House of Representatives. I would hope that it undercuts her power. I would hope that it shows you can defy the lunatic mag. That'd be great, because that only needs to happen a couple of times before the fundraising dries up, which is why they're doing anything. That's the whole point of it all. Cramerica Industries, The True Believer by Eric Hoffer had some interesting insights into why people follow demagogues like Trump. Street Medic says Pericles' funeral oration, Churchill's darkest hour, FDR is the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, and Trump's Gettysburg wow speech. One of the things is not like the other. You joke, but there is merch in MAGA world of the text of the Gettysburg part of that text. They love it. They love it. And at rallies, MAGA lunatics, red hat lunatics, have referred to him admiringly as, you see, this is why we love him. He's a man, not only is a man of the people and a business genius, but he's also a historian. Uh, J. Scott Phillips, how about a blob watch to celebrate the cat on the New Yorker cover? Well, I would love to, but one of my hands has been possessed. I don't know how I can do a blob watch with only one hand. No, I can't even reach. I can't even reach the iPad. I have one of my hands has been commandeered. Uh, Kevin J. N says, any chance you can bring back Psalm Sunday? You could study with us from Donald Trump's Bible. I wonder what translation it is. It's the King James translation. The original version of this thing by what's his name? Proud to be an American. What's his? I'm blanking on his name. The guy who does that song. Uh, Lee something or other. You'll tell me. The chat will tell me. Chat, guys. You'll tell me who it is. But the original version of this looked exactly the same. Was I think the New American Standard or New Revised Standard or something like that. But you need to pay for that. You don't need to pay for the King James Bible. So they changed it to that so that they could just make even more profit off the thing. Ooh. And of course, when that whole controversy was in the news, what's his name? Oh, it's driving me crazy. I don't remember his name, but that song, "Proud to be an American," was had a little bit of a renaissance on fascist radio programs, on fascist FM. That was suddenly getting more airtime. It reminded me of the song, which of course I've heard a million times, and I've also seen the video. And I love the lyrics of the song because all kinds of parts of the United States are mentioned in the song. And they all have their wonder. They've all sent boys off to wars. They all just farm like ordinary folk, right? They're all just ordinary, good, up-hearted Americans. And he gives parameters of what he's talking about. From the lakes of Minnesota to the shores of whatnot, all that sort of thing. And when it comes time for him to talk about east to west, he says from New York to LA. The part of the song that is completely left out is New England. And I'm proud of that fact. I'm proud of the fact that he could not think of anything good to say about Massachusetts. I'm proud of that. uh, let's see here. The Spaminator. Could we not talk about Steve Fartface Crowder? The man sickens me. You have no idea how hard it is to be traditional constitutional conservative in this century. Oh, I know how hard it is. I do. I have spent a week with David Murphy. I know exactly how hard it is to be one. Especially they're embarrassing you everywhere. Definitely. Matt Sheridan is responding to the Spaminator. Ryan says, "Hey Steve, what did I miss? What is your favorite book size? Why is not square?" Uh, I don't know what any of that means. You missed an hour of a chat. Obviously, I can't reprise that. My favorite book size is probably trade paperback, big size, but actually, it's an ebook. An ebook would be my favorite book size. Trip says, "What do you think about Tucker Carlson? Is he really that dumb, or is he acting?" Uh, and Matt Sheridan says Tucker is a total naked grifter. I would ordinarily suspect Tucker Carlson of being smart enough to know what he's doing. So I have to assume that he's just an absolute nihilist, just absolute millenarian thinking. I am putting everything on this number with nothing held back, with no thought about the future. I'm putting everything on this. Uh, I'm glad to see that he was bounced and that he has no audience anymore. That's good. He wasn't quite so thoroughly Bill O'Reilly as Bill O'Reilly was, but close enough. He's certainly not commandeering the thoughts of the whole of 180 million Americans every day, the way it used to be. So that's good. Byron Perry says, "Hi Steve, just finished the Magic Mountain, following your Western Canon starter kit, and found it utterly entrancing. Found myself fitting a student life around it rather than the other way around." That's those priorities are in good place. You're learning a lot more from that than you would be from student life. Street Medic, the Stevestream collapsed last time because the internet couldn't handle the sheer awesomeness of your presence, and it had to be reinforced before your next appearance. The internet doesn't know about me, and I'm rather content with that. The talk shows, especially the podcasters and dude bros, they don't know that here in this tiny little backwater of YouTube that they don't know exists, we get their grift and we're mocking them. They don't know that that happens. They certainly don't think that this weird, unaccountable, incredibly old guy is doing the mocking. They certainly don't think that. That is beyond any calculation whatsoever. They're thinking if they're getting mocked, they're getting memed by vape-headed Gen Z. They don't think somebody old enough to be their great grandfather is mocking them and sees right through them. They just don't know it happens. So, and I'm content with that. Oh, this chat jumped again. Let's go back to Street Medic. He was talking about how awesome I was. The Spaminator. I did not watch WrestleMania. Rarely watch wrestling on TV these days. Matt Sheridan says, "I agree about James Elroy. Guy seems a few cans short of a six pack, but a wonderful writer." Yeah, he's nuts. Completely nuts. Uh, J. Scott Phillips. "I inherited my father's entire history collection, 3 bookcases full. Being an old Navy guy, there are mostly militarists." Oh my. Oh my, that must be nice. Andrew McDonald says, "Your channel inspired me to put all of my Penguin books together. My bookshelf devoted to fantagraphics and philosophy happened independently of your channel." J. Scott Phillips, my father's favorite history book was And I Was There. It was all about his task force in the Pacific during World War II. Books and Books is here. Hello, I very much enjoyed your Steve Does Decor mail haul yesterday. So much space for bookshelves, so few books. Yes, an entire wall of built in solid wooden bookshelves devoted to knickknacks, artfully placed knickknacks, while all of us are crying for shelf space. Heartbreaking. Richardson Reads is here. My dad loved Bruce Catton. Matt Sheridan says, "Why has Robert E. Lee been held in such high regard?" Well, uh, first of all, he looked the part. But second, starting in the early part of the early decades of the 20th century, when the 20th century was very young, there was a huge movement to rehabilitate the whole idea. We had an honorable conflict. We had a fight between brothers. They were honorable men. They were fine generals, et cetera, et cetera. And that has just lingered. That melded with 1930s lynching era racism into a blend that fits perfectly, and that has just stayed true. And I guess is going nowhere. I don't get it at all. I don't get it at all. Matt Sheridan says Matt Gates is in big trouble. I don't know. I hesitate to predict that because he should be in jail already. There are canceled checks. There are actual Venmo records. What more do you need than that for Pete's sake? If there are Venmo records, there are certainly surveillance tapes. And yet, and yet, there he is in the House of Representatives, perfectly free to cost young, valiant Ukrainian soldiers their lives on a grandstanding, on nothing. He doesn't have any principles, so nothing about the war in Ukraine is offending his principles. The ethics complaint has not gone away. And very subtly behind the scenes, which is where he operates best, Kevin McCarthy is keeping it alive and maybe feeding it info. So it could be that he's in big trouble. It could be. I'm surprised that he has not been more extensively Madison Cawthorn. The House got rid of Cawthorn. They realized now this kid's got a mouth way too big for our needs and just got rid of him. You know that the same people, the same rat effers who did that to Madison Cawthorn, they aren't in the House of Representatives. They work for the House of Representatives in the shadows. You know they have a file every bit as big on Matt Gaetz and are just not using it. So they could, though, in which case the House would turn on him and he'd be gone. But it hasn't happened. Andrew Russell, hi Steve, just caught you. Hopefully, plenty of chat still going. We're going to 10 past the hour. Connor says you're turning into a dude bro right before our eyes. It's so surreal. It's like hearing Mr. Rogers cuss. Guys, buy my merch. Mark says another of my grandfather's books is a biography of Da Vinci called Leonardo da Vinci: The Tragic Pursuit of Perfection, by Antonia Valentin. Always wanted to ask you about it. It's very good. I'd love to find a copy at the Brattle. I never see it with a dust jacket, but I do sometimes see the big hardcover, and it's very good, very atmospheric. Mark says, particularly whether it's still held in high regard or if it's been superseded by more recent biography of Da Vinci. See, this is the thing. This is my complaint about biographies and histories: is that there's this idea that they can be superseded when uh, we don't talk about F. Scott Fitzgerald or Willa Cather superseding Jane Austen. We don't talk that way about anything else but these things. The the big fat biography of Leonardo that you're talking about can't be superseded. It's wonderfully eloquent. Uh, Andrew Russell's responding to Matt Sheridan. Alexander Buchheil says your audio did something weird. It froze up while you said Senator's name. Uh-oh. Could that be the beginning of the end? Uh-oh. Well, the Stevestream's had a pretty good run. A lot better than the last one. Uh, uh, Dorothy Satterfield says, hi, Steve. Who are those two dogs in tonight's thumbnail? Aren't they adorable? I don't know who they are. Matt Sheridan says Lee Greenwood. Yes, Lee Greenwood, and the song sucks. Yes, I'm proud to be an American because in America, because at least I know I'm free. Uh, which it's syrupy and awful, and the video is just horrible, just horribly manipulative. Uh, but I still smile every time I hear the lyrics. Every time I happen to see the video or whatnot, I still smile because he could not deal with New England, the bed place of liberty. The fact that he's proud to be an American is because of New England. It was born here. New England, American liberty was born here. But no, no, I hate New England. I might be able to find something good to say about the rest of the country. I might even mention L.A., where my video was made. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut New England right out of there. It's New York to L.A. J. Scott Phillips says, speaking of the New Yorker, how about those excerpts from the Trump Bible? Yes, it was funny. That reminded me of the video, The Republican Jesus. On YouTube, there's a video called The Republican Jesus. That's really rather funny. Oh, wait. The hand is free. We can do a blob watch. The bean has shifted. Let's see what we have. Uh, let's give the satellites time to hone in here and then see what we have. Okay, slowly but surely, grid by grid. It's not slow. Obviously, it's not slow. It's happening in seconds, but it feels it in the present moment. It feels it. Uh, okay, are we all done? Yeah. All right. So here's the whole country, and as you can see, there's a massive system off the south. Nothing else, just nothing else at all. And this system is going out to sea, so it's not going to come up the east coast. I doubt very much that even a remnant of that will hit Boston. Maybe because it does stretch a little inland. So maybe we've got the intense parts in yellow there. Maybe that will stay enough inland to hit New England, but I doubt it. So it's a fairly quiet time for a block watch. Uh, Tolstoy 111. Speaking of clueless generals, how about Field Marshal Douglas Haig, who said the planes and tanks will never surpass the well-bred horse? Stephen Bronstein says, did you hear Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, complaining that Trump's fraud case hurts the American brand? No, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that at all. I'm very much certain uh, that when you're talking about the American brand, I'm very much certain that the rest of the world makes a distinction between Trump and America. I'm very certain of that. Tolstoy 111 says the new American Masters piece on William F. Buckley was poignant in terms of seeing what conservative used to mean. The Spaminator is entirely right. I don't usually say that, but it's true. Once upon a time, there was such a thing. And you could say it, and it didn't mean that you were a crazy science denier and in a cult. Now it means you're a crazy science denying cult member. But it didn't used to mean that. Ryan says we were emailing about the tall/narrow book sizes and what they are called. Yes, I can't remember the name of the tall size that started coming out about 10 years ago. I can't remember the name of that. Uh, Dorothy Satterfield says Tucker Carlson always reminded me of Alfred E. Newman. Yeah. Um, Ryan says, how much Lestat do you need to read before you see immortals/vampires as Jung's collective unconscious and the ones who carry memories across the centuries? I could read it until the cows come home and I wouldn't see it that way. I don't know why anybody would. Connor says, you've got the headset and you're talking politics. What is this? Hassan/STD collab stream? Hassan Piker doesn't know that I exist. None of these people know that I exist. They don't know they're being watched by someone who's not a fanboy, who's not dim, who's more educated than they are, better informed of current events than they are, and sees right through the stuff they're doing. And has legitimate criticisms of them on every level of what they do. I don't care how many millions of dollars Hassan Piker makes a month. You don't talk to people with your mouth full. And if he didn't talk to people with his mouth full, if he didn't talk while he was not just a little bit that I'm still nibbling on, but full scale eating, if he didn't talk while he was doing that, he wouldn't have a stream. That's all he does is talk with his entire face full of food. Uh, let's see here. DT says, what's going on with Crowder? Well, the previous mention might have meant something later, something newer that I don't know about. But slowly, in dribs and drabs, all sorts of damning stuff is coming out about him and being confirmed about what a monstrous abuser of his coworkers he was, his employees. I knew this anyway. I knew this from his deposition years ago that he's just an unbelievable jerk. Where he would call up his producer for that day and say, I just stubbed my toe or I banged my shin. I'm effing furious. Fire somebody. I don't care who it is. So the person's working for him. They're making a living. They've got a family to support. But he did that. He's done that sort of stuff for years. Just being a fourth century French monarch, an absolute monarch who's just, a whimsical tyrant and thinks it's never going to end. Thinks I've got my own kingdom and it's never going to stop. And more of those stories are coming out. Unless there's been some new development, that's what I'm thinking of. Kevin J.N. says, have the upcoming Bill Maher book crossed your desk yet? Bob Woodward's editor from Simon & Schuster says it will sway many people's opinions come election time. He says Maher is the next Twain. I don't have a physical copy yet. I don't intend to write about it. I don't have a physical copy yet, and I haven't read a lot of it. I've read a little chunk of it. The next Twain is just an insult, just an unthinkable insult. Street medic, I once took a famous wrestler to the hospital, and he spent the entire time talking about himself in the third person. Andrew Russell says, just a quick note to say thanks, Steve, for another perfect recommendation through your channel. Oh, I love hearing that. Shoshana Zuboff's The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. What a book. What a book. Matt Sheridan, hearing Trump talk about Gettysburg was like hearing the account from a head trauma patient. Yes, all of these things always remind me of something somebody, an analyst, said in 2015 during the presidential election campaign. A specialist said that it's only when he's burbling verbally that there's any kind of magic. Read a printout and you are, that was her exact phrase, read a printout and you will be reading a head trauma patient. That's exactly what it sounds like when you read it. When you read the words, or if you get a printout and read the words out loud in your own voice, that's exactly what it sounds like. It's just somehow covered over by how freakish he looks when he talks. Jared Henderson is here. We need more Donahue Does Decor. I'm moving and planning to build shelving, and you know I can't make a decision without you. Well, if that preview magazine was any indication, that means that Architectural Digest itself will be coming. And then you will get Donahue Does Decor at least once a month. But does this mean everybody wants Donahue Does Decor? So does this mean I should subscribe to other decor magazines? Should I do that? There's one called Home, I think. I could do that. Uh, Scott Jones says, yes, I got a big kick out of your decor segment. Hadn't seen your previous segments. You were in rare form. I agree with you on space. I prefer snug spaces over caverns. Stephen Bronstein says, what do you think of Gideon Levy of Haaretz? Not much. Richardson Reed says, I've been to Hyde Cottage. Steve is not your decor guy. The people seem to disagree with you. The Mild Rumpus, you got your headphones. Oh, yes. I'm your favorite streamer. I'm a real streamer. guys. Loved your Stay Gold tag video, by the way. Oh, thank you. Street Medic says, I'm convinced Melania is on salary and got a bonus when she had Barron. No, she's not on a salary. She's hang on just a second. Okay. She's a little bit difficult for people to understand. And I don't blame them because it sounds weird. It sounds like I'm using hyperbole. She's not on a salary. She's owned. She is Donald Trump's property. She's not his wife. She's his property. That's why she hasn't left him. That's why she never will leave him, because she can't leave him. He bought her from her previous owner. And she wouldn't have got a bonus for having Barron unless Trump were involved. And Trump had a disease in the late 80s. Perhaps some of you know the disease I'm talking about. It rendered him incapable of growing hair anywhere on his body, and it eliminated the chance that he can father a child. It was common knowledge in New York at the time. It's why he can't grow hair on his body, and it definitely rules out Barron. Sorry to say, it rules out Barron. DT says, are Dav Pilkey's Dog Man graphic novels good? I want to get one for a young gentleman. I've never read one. I guess they're major sellers, so maybe I should, but I've never read one. Let's see here. J. Scott Phillips says, we need a Francis Bacon starter kit. I don't know whether to begin his first folio or his sonnets. Nobody needs a Francis Bacon starter kit. Nobody does. Not even this corner of Booktube. Bottle in Books was on a Zoom with friend in Kharkiv earlier. His grandkids' primary school was just bombed, and they're trying to set up a school in the metro. This is what Gates et al. Support. Yeah, and because we've elected these monsters, these MAGA social media people, to a governing body, they get to have a genuine effect. Imagine these people scrambling to make a school, because school is important, and you want to continue some sort of normalcy for your kids. That's every parent's instinct, is to continue some sort of normalcy for your kids, give them some sort of normal, protected childhood. Now imagine what parents in Gaza must be thinking. It just Aaron says, is there a writer you think captures the voice or vibe of New England better than any other? Not the New England that exists now. The New England that I'm most familiar with is the Boston of the 19th century. And I can name you a lot of names from there, but not now. I don't have any idea who would do it now. DT says, when did you visit Area 51 and what did you see there? I visited Area 51 a long, long time ago, but I saw nothing except ordinary U.S. service people. I caught them by surprise. Apparently, it's not that hard to do, judging from other YouTube videos that I've seen made decades later. I caught them by surprise. I came in out of the chaparral where no one is supposed to be. I came in with a bunch of dogs, and they weren't aware of me until I was right on top of them. And to be fair, I wasn't aware of them until I was right on top of them either. But it was perfectly congenial. It was before social media, so everybody was still sane. Uh, Richardson Reed answers Kenneth Roberts, maybe for an earlier generation, maybe. Nick Piccarilli says, when will Jared Henderson be at Hyde Cottage? Oh, that'll never happen. He wouldn't come here, please. Denson Camp says, hello, Steve. I was curious, what are your thoughts on To Kill a Mockingbird? I don't believe I've seen you talk about it on your channel unless maybe I missed it. Well, there have been 7,000 videos, so you could have missed it. Don't beat yourself up. But I like it. Of course, I like it. Aaron says, did you ever read that thread about you regarding Cormac McCarthy? What did you think? I did read this. There's a thread of me on Reddit. The incels on Reddit somehow found my videos reviewing and tearing apart The Road by Cormac McCarthy. And one of you alerted me to it. So I went and read the whole thing from start to finish. And it was pretty much what I expected. Lots and lots of bruised feelings, lots and lots of people who aren't accustomed to having anyone say anything negative about a book that they like, lots and lots of amateur readers, in other words, who went immediately to what I look like. There were a whole bunch of comments about what I look like. And a whole bunch of people saying, oh, no, you're completely wrong. One person just matter of factly said, well, no, of course the man and the boy are never named because they're us. They're supposed to be us. Okay, where's that in the book? You're just telling me that's the reason. Okay, why should I believe you? Where is that in the book? I have a bit of experience reading books. I don't see that. Uh, and I read the whole thread through. There aren't that many entries in it. I thought it was kind of fun. Emma, of course, stuck up for me, called me an icon. But uh, I told myself when I was done reading the thread, I said, this is Reddit. So your first instinct is to fire off a response, because I fire off responses to everything. I fire off letters to the editor, responses on comments fields, everything, all the time. I said, your first response is to fire off something, but don't do that. And that resolve held for about 12 hours, and then I did leave a response. I haven't been back to see whether or not they've responded to me, to knowing that the guy they're talking about was in the comments. I haven't gone back to see if I kicked a hornet's nest, but I wasn't impressed by what I saw. I'm much more. The thing that it made me think, actually, when I was reading those things, was how lucky I am. Once again, how lucky I am to have fallen in with this group of people on Booktube, where we can hate each other's books and still talk about it. Mature readers, in other words, advanced readers, people who get reading. You only have to be out in the world for a little bit to realize how rare that is, how few people are like that. Uh, let's see here. Street Medic says, I used to watch Buckley on Firing Line just so I could yell at TV. Yeah, I started being a crabby old man before puberty. Ryan says, Steve, when will you do a week in the life like Joe Spivey's video today? It would require edits. Yes, it would require edits. Joe Spivey did a video today, a week in the life of a freelance reviewer. I'm very proud to say that he is a freelance reviewer for Open Letters. Uh, no other venue has bitten so far at his stuff. They will. He will be poached. I guarantee it. He's too good to stick with just Open Letters. I'm as proud as could be to publish him while he is. But he did a week in the life of a freelance reviewer. Talked about what it is that you do, how he does a book review. He's very similar to another young reviewer that I used to know decades ago, in the way he organizes his material on a paper with actual handwriting, even down to the look of it. It was very similar. It was very eerie. And I would love to do a video like that. It was the first thing I thought, was how much I would love to do a video like that, but I don't edit. So I don't know how to edit. It would take forever for me to learn. So I don't know how to do a time lapse thing like that. I could still do a kind of video like that of how I review a book. It's been years since I did that on this channel. Since I did a video about how to review a book. And a friend of mine who has a YouTube channel told me just recently that it's wrong for you to think in terms of years when you're talking about BookTube viewership. He said the vast majority of people who are watching our channel now have only been watching it for a few months. So if you made a video years ago on subject X, Y, or Z, feel free to do it again. It's not like anybody is around who's going to call you on it. I don't think that he's completely right about that when it comes to this channel. But still, I could do that. The Spaminator's back. What completely divorced me from Crowder was seeing the way he spoke to his wife. Even in my worst moments, I would never speak to my beloved wife that way. I would never speak to any woman that way. Yeah, it was that famous leaked footage uh, provoked a lot of great commentary from spousal abuse experts who were reading the body language and especially the vocal language, uh, in and pulling nuances out of it that I was missing. And I thought I caught a lot from that video. When he in that video footage, when he says "watch it," uh, that was someone who was physically threatened. The person they're talking to. Only someone who does that would ever take that tone. He doesn't physically threaten her in that video, but that he has made physical threats to her. I knew that as soon as I heard that. But a whole bunch of experts weighed in on a lot of other things that were going on there. It was fascinating. Uh, oh, what? The chat jumped again? We were at the Spaminator. There we go. Mark says, I have to agree with your skeptical point about biographies being superseded. I suppose I meant superseded in terms of accuracy, but I'm sure modern biographers of Da Vinci work with the same source material. Plus, even if a biography is hagiographic, as long as it's enjoyable to read, I can still appreciate it on those grounds. Right. There's nothing all that much new with Da Vinci. So you're going to be examining the subject matter and then writing about it. It's not the same thing as, for instance, a Vladimir Putin biography, right? Where one of those could be superseded because his story's not over. He hasn't been assassinated yet. And there are all sorts of hidden documents. So there, factual revelations could make a difference. But Alexander the Great? No, no. Matt Sheridan says no hair on his body sounds like Judge Holden. Yeah, does it? Yeah, he has hair on his body, but only the hair that is artificial. He can't grow hair. He can't grow hair on his body, and he is sterile. And there's a particular thing that he got that made him that way. Some of you will recognize the symptoms. It was common knowledge. It happened, and it rules out Barron's parentage. Not to say nothing of the fact that Barron is currently 8 feet tall and a dead ringer for Melania's personal trainer. So we don't have to talk about that. Uh, J. Scott Phillips says, "Will Trump ever have a high school named after him?" Uh, I think there's a better than 60% chance that in very little time, every high school will be named after him. Uh, Matt Sheridan says, "I must go for now. This was fun. Good night, Steve, and my fellow vermin." Yes, well, we'll wrap this up soon at 10 past the hour. Tolstoy 111 says, "Your reading philosophy makes me think you'd scoff at the interpretation of Full Metal Jacket, stating that Private Pyle didn't exist, but was a psychic projection of the other cadets." I would scoff at that. Yeah. Aaron says, Dennis Lehane said he started writing because he felt no one captured the Boston voice that he knew. Do you think he managed to accomplish that? Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes he does. I think, ironically, I know that's why he says he started writing, but I think, ironically enough, he's better when he's not writing that voice than when he is. But sometimes he manages it. Yeah. Uh, Mark says, also, there are myriad ways to tackle biography. A pointed one like the literary Churchill is a wonderful example. Theodore Roosevelt, A Literary Life, is among the same lines, also a lovely read. Dorothy Satterfield says, I just looked up Tiffany Trump's birth date, 1993. So after Trump's disease. Guess that explains why he never mentions her. 1993. Uh, okay. All right. So I might have the date wrong. It might have been right before that. I believe she is his daughter. He doesn't mention her because she's a woman, not because she's not his. Uh, yeah, I might have the date wrong. It wasn't the late 80s. It might have been right around 1990. Or was it 89? I have a whole box of records from the time, and I could easily look. It's right around then, but she's his, so it would have been after her. Uh, uh, no, I didn't think it was as late as the mid 90s. Could have been. It could have been. I don't know the exact date. I know the prognosis. I know where he went to get it treated. I know that it's been common knowledge in plenty of New York circles ever since then, and that he lies about it. Of course, he says he's never been sick with anything, never had any kind of illness. I think he's currently denying that he ever had COVID. Uh, the Spaminator says, "I do love Alex Jones, though. He's one of the few in the media with integrity and says it like it is." Aaron says, "Despite his poor and sparse dialogue, do you think Lovecraft represents anything unique about New England?" No. Uh, Mike Jr. says, "My cousin was trying to tell me Trump is a modern day Churchill." See, this is the problem that I mentioned many times before. It is possible to inculcate, to radicalize large numbers of people at one time into a cult. Look at video footage of rallies in 1930s Germany. You can radicalize a whole crowd of people all at once. You turn them, and then they break off into taverns and hotels and their homes and continue radicalizing each other. But de-radicalizing someone, deprogramming someone from a cult is entirely individual, and it takes a long time. It's an incredibly delicate, involved process, which means that if somebody comes along and radicalizes 180 million people, you're not going to de-radicalize them. It's not going to happen. Uh, J. Scott Phillips says, I just Googled B&N stores in Orange County. There is a new one now in Tustin. It's still a big superstore type. They are calling it a Barnes& and Noble legacy store. Oh, wow. They're calling it a legacy store? Oh, okay. Is it close enough for you to go to? Street Medic says lizards don't have hair. Scott Jones says just picked up Saga for the Volsungs. Excited to check it out. Was going to read Tolkien's Sigurd and Gudrun, but I think I should read Volsungs first. Well, Volsungs won't take you any time at all. It'll take you an afternoon to read. Uh, the Spaminator says we have a fake Spaminator in the chat. Oh, who would fake being the Spaminator? The Street Medic says I'm in Oklahoma. Trump is like the second coming here. Quite literally. Yeah, he's worshipped. In Trump cult, he's worshipped. He isn't just liked. It's no longer a question of him just owning the libs. He's a religious figure. There are plenty of Trump cult members. I call it Trump cult for a reason. There are plenty of Trump cult leaders who will come right out and say that. There are plenty of Trump cult members who will say, "Yeah, I worship Jesus, but I think about Trump first." And we saw the very beginnings of that during the 2016 presidential campaign, when a whole bunch of Trump supporters were interviewed, and one of them said, "Well, I trust Trump more than I trust Jesus," and the interviewer did not push back, just did not push back. The interviewer of these five people should have said, "Are you insane?" And they didn't do it. They just didn't do it. That interviewer had never heard anyone say that about Walter Mondale or Jimmy Carter or anything like that. They'd never heard anyone say anything like that before, and they didn't push back. No one ever does. Uh, the Spaminator says there's a fake Spaminator here. I already said that. Okay. Siva Bronstein said, is Stephen Hawking worth reading? No. Street Medic says, will the sun... Well, the sun is setting, so I guess the lawn will have to wait. The lawn can wait. The lawn can wait. Siva Bronstein says, who owned Melania before Trump? Her dad? No, he sold her to a businessman in her own country, which is like Uzbekistan or something. I forget the name of her country. He sold her to a businessman in her country. I remember the chain of custody of Tom Brady's current wife. He bought his wife from Leonardo DiCaprio, and I can almost remember who DiCaprio bought her from. Price going up the whole time, especially now that she's proven that she can breed. Melania was bought for her cheeks, but she can breed. Freeman says, what does the combat zone in Boston look like these days? It's gone. There's no combat zone in Boston anymore. It used to be. Once upon a time, I remember it very, very well, but it's gone. It's all commercial now. It's all big TD North and whatnot. Jared Henderson is back. Combat zone is gone because all good things must come to an end. Yeah, the combat zone is gone. Well, I remember it well. Once upon a time, you could go there and get literally anything you wanted. Literally anything. Scott Jones, oh my, that brand of cultism is rife in Western Pennsylvania. Yeah, they don't just like him, they worship him. And it used to be in 2015, 2016, maybe even 2017, if you said that to them, they would laugh self-consciously and say, I know, sometimes I take it a little far. Now they just not. Now they just agree. I do. He isn't human. He's God's anointed. He's a new Daniel. Richardson Reed says, love that people in Oklahoma love New York moguls. J. Scott Phillips says, yes, the B&N Legacy store is 15 miles from my house, about 18 minutes away, no traffic, not too bad. I would like to know more about it. At least you'll have a big newsstand. Gola Muad'Dib, wait, can I buy a wife? Why am I wasting my time dating? Not unless you have a lot of money to throw around. And of course, none of it is above board. And I don't expect you to believe me about Tom Brady's wife or about Trump's wife or a couple of other examples that I could name. I don't expect you to believe me, but nevertheless, I have a whole bunch of crackpots things that I say about Trump. This will be one of them. He had a disease that rendered him impotent. And so his youngest boy, the one that's 8 feet tall, is not his. And he can't grow hair on his body. Uh, and he owns his wife. They are not married. She's his property, and a bunch of other things, a bunch of other crazy claims that I make about him. Oh, and some of the stories about how cruel he has been to Melania over the years, you just wouldn't believe. Maybe you would believe them. Uh, JLK says, "Is it just me, or have many bookstores gotten louder over the years? I remember people whispering in bookstores 20 years ago. Today, in my local Books a Million, the music in the store was blaring. Yeah, they get louder. A lot of marketing experts have told them that that will help with sales. Also, in Barnes and Noble, uh, the music companies used to say, "You here, we'll pay you to play this in the store on repeat all day long, and we want to hear it. We want the volume to be up there." Uh, the Spaminator says, "I wouldn't mind being Trump for a day if it meant getting to see Melania under the sheets. If you know what I mean." No, I don't know what you mean. That's absolutely gross. And he's never seen her under the sheets. So I don't know what you're talking about. Jared Henderson says, "Do you ever go into the Brattle and buy from outside of the sale lot, or are you a sale lot only kind of guy?" Oh, no, I go into the shop. I buy things in the shop. Yeah, all the time. I do the sale lot thoroughly. So all the carts and then the wall shelves thoroughly. Then I haul everything that I have an arm load by then. So I haul everything inside, say hi to everybody, put the things on a customer hold shelf, and do a tour around the store. And if I pick out one or two things, I'm not as liberal in the store because it's not a dollar. So I pick out one or two things, put them on the hold shelf. Then I do another tour of outside just to give the eyes time to refresh. Uh, and Jared wants to know, how big a tote bag should I bring for a Brattle trip? The the Brattle will give you a tote bag. Their tote bag. Excuse me. Their tote bags are fantastic. Very, very big, very durable. Jordan Knowles says, "Heard an interview with the country singer Ricky Skaggs discussing Trump a few years ago. The evangelical derangement was astonishing. Yeah, they believe that he's the Messiah. They believe that he's not human. Uh, that's not an exaggeration. In 2015 and 2016, some people, me included, were saying these people are treating him like he's a cult figure. Now they legitimately think of him as a religious figure. They legitimately do. So big mega churches in Texas and Kentucky and whatnot, they mention his name, and everyone in the crowd does this because he's not. That's an invocation to prayer. That's not a violation of the Johnson Act. An invocation to prayer. It's not ironic anymore, and they don't treat it ironically. They don't laugh self-consciously anymore. They say, "Yeah, he's the Messiah. He's a new Daniel. He's not just a president. We don't want a democracy. We want a theocracy, a Christian theocracy." Uh, Street Medic says, "You did as well to go to bed with a life-size Barbie doll." That would be referring to Melania, I suppose. "I'm going to need a van when eventually I make it to the Brattle." It's you get a lot. Yeah, you could get a lot. It's the lot. The sale lot is pretty elaborate. It's pretty generous. It's everything out there is so cheap, and there's so many books out there before you even go inside the store. Scott Jones says, "The grinders, blenders, and espresso machines in B&N Cafe are deafening. Can't stand it. Perhaps they figure what with that noise already, might as well make more." Stephen Bronstein says, "Do you like Anthony Bourdain and his writing? Did you enjoy Kitchen Confidential?" Uh, I do. I do like Anthony Bourdain's writing. I have never watched Kitchen Confidential. No. Uh, but that's got us to the end of the chat. Those are we're at the end of the comments. And that probably means we should wrap up the chat, which has not failed on its own. That's wonderful. Dorothy Satterfield says, "Will you be reviewing the book on Perry Rathbone and the Boston Raphael and Open Letters Review?" I don't know if I'll be reviewing the Boston Raphael. I might review his diaries. There's a new production of his diaries. That's very tempting. I might do that. It'd be great to write about it. Uh, Mark says, "You mentioned Alexander, which reminds me, it was through you, both your videos and written reviews, that I discovered Robin Lane Fox's work, and I'm forever indebted to you." Oh, it's always nice to hear that a review lands. That means a lot to me because I am first and foremost a reviewer. Uh, I'm having a blast with Homer and his Iliad. Can't wait to dig into his biographies of Alexander and Augustine. Thank you. Uh, yes, Robin Lane Fox. Those books are good, definitely, but there are two other biographies of Saint Augustine that you should read that are better than his. I hate to say it, his was really good, but there are two that are better. Uh, the the one before his, the major mainstream one before his, is better than his. Uh, Street Medic, honey, we're going to have to add another wing to the house. I just got back from the Brattle. That's what it felt like when David Murphy was here. It felt like I was going to have to add another room because we were just coming back with carloads of books every time we went out. Uh, uh, Siva Bronstein says, "Am I sensing some ghost writing for Tony B?" No, no, he didn't need any help. No, he's a first-rate writer. Uh, Jared Henderson, my wife has given me a strict budget for my totally hypothetical Boston trip. She's not the boss of you. That's it. St. Paul says, let your women be silent in church. If she gives you a strict budget for your hypothetical Boston trip, tell her to go into the kitchen and make you a sandwich. Aaron says, if bookstores were quieter in the past, imagine that was partially due earlier generations being more thoroughly conditioned to library etiquette. Yes, except modern libraries don't insist on quiet. They they modern libraries do that as an antiquated idea of the past. Street Medic says Kitchen Confidential is one of the audiobooks I like better than the print because of Anthony Bourdain's narration. I don't doubt that at all. Lois Minky says, have you ever read Voyage of the Narwhal? Did you enjoy it? All this time in the Stevestream. We got all this time, an hour and 45 minutes. And I got a have you ever read question. I suppose it was bound to happen. I have read Voyage of the Narwhal and I liked it. Mark is responding to Aaron. Steve Bronstein said, do you like Neil deGrasse Tyson? I do. Yeah. Scott Jones says, I chime in with Mark, plan to jump in on Fox as soon as I've finished Everett. I wish I'd started with one of the biggies. Feel free to consult with me in email on any of these things. Aaron says you should post the rules on sign over your shoulder. Well, the space is occupied by himself from Rotterdam. And besides, new people, that YouTuber friend of mine, friend of mine said, he said just recently, just the other day, he said 60% of your so-called followers, your subscriber count and whatnot, are bots. 60% conservatively are bots, not people at all. And of the remainder, 90% are new. So don't worry about consistency or anything like that. And don't fault people if they don't know the lay of the land. I'm trying to take that to heart here. JLK says, what is the Augustus biography that you recommend over Fox's? There are quite a few. I would go older. I would go 19th century. There are quite a few. John Buchan wrote one that was really, really good. Speak of the devil. But there are others that I would recommend. And also, about 30 years ago, there was a critical edition of the Historia Augusta that had an introduction that was like 150 pages long. It was wonderful on Augustus himself. I'd have to find the details of it because I don't think I have it here. Uh, and I'm not saying that Fox is. Oh no, you said Augustine. I was thinking Augustus. Sorry. What was his name? Donald O'Donnell. I'm blanking on the author's name. I'm terrible on author's name, but there was a biography of Saint Augustine about 30 years ago by a guy named James O'Donnell, I think. That was fantastic, even better than Robin Lane Fox. And before this O'Donnell guy, there was a guy named Peter Brown did a biography of Augustine that was even better than that. So you'd be going back with Peter Brown. You're going back a century, but I'm sure that there are copies out there, lots of them. Uh, But anyway, Dorothy Satterfield says Peter Brown's biography of Augusta Hippo is excellent. Yes, it is. It's really, really good. Richard Reed wants to know, have you ever read Homer? Mark is responding to Scott Jones. Street Medic says, OMG, Steve ripped off the headphones. Run. It's every man for himself. I should put them back on. But we're wrapping up this stream anyway. I pulled them off for dramatic effect because I got to have you read question. Uh, Sean G says, how come travel vlogs just show what people eat? What are you doing for the other 99% of the day? Why would people travel just to eat? I know with the van life and the extreme camping and all that, a big part of that, a huge fetishistic part of that is preparing meals. And I have not figured out why. I haven't figured out what that's doing there. When I'm watching those videos of you living in your van, moving from one, all night gym parking lot to another, I want to know where you're showering, where are you going to the bathroom, and you never get that. Instead, you get, well, I have some salmon here with a little cilantro, and and there's loving, beautiful footage of them fixing the food and eating the food. I don't get that element of any of that. Derek says, "Have you ever read a street sign like for a restaurant or something?" Ione Evans, I'm no bot. I like your content. Reminds me of CNN Book TV. Well, that's very nice to know you're not a bot. Uh, J. Scott Phillips says, "Never ask, have you read question, me boys." Never march uphill, me boys, except for you, Pickett, and all of your men. Steve Bronstein, how come you're not a fan of Michael Pollan's writings? Uh, well, mainly it's because of the botany of desire. In the botany of desire, he says that he describes the long history of the potato. When my grandmother told me that the potato was given to Ireland by the Blessed Virgin Mary, one of them has to be wrong. It's not going to be her. Frederick Zoller says, "Hi, Steve. Hope you're well. What are your favorite Nabokov book? I hope you're uh, doing well." My favorite Nabokov book would be his collection of nonfiction. I guess you could probably see that coming a mile away. Street Medic says, since the gloves are off, I might as well ask the question on everyone's mind: the Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew? Uh, Perky young girl or two fit, adventurous young boys? So teenage boys. Oh, such a choice. I'll have to try. I'll have to figure that out. That could be a coin toss. Mark says, all right, well, now we're all going to spend the next few years trying to pull Bourdain stories out of you. Did he give you the heroin you tried? Uh, no, he did not. I was both the heroin and the cocaine that I tried just once. I tried each of them once just to see what it was like. They both came from a hospital dispensary. I shouldn't say that, but they did. It was easy to do. Jared Anderson, the van life influencers shower in the hotels they pay for with ad revenue. Well, something's got to happen, but they don't show you any of that. They don't show you almost none. The only time you ever get details like that are when they regularly make videos saying, I'm leaving the van life. And then they tell you all about it. But most of the rest of them are just pornographic slow shots of food cooking. Which is, it's weird enough to understand in the van life videos. It's even weirder to understand in the stealth van videos because what's stealth about that? You think anybody in a 3-block radius doesn't know you're cooking steak? Richard Reed says Nancy Drew. J. Scott Phillips, they showering at the gym whose parking lot they're parked in. Right, and there are like 10 of them parked in. They're all making content. And lining up in the shower, is that what they're doing? I don't get it. I don't get it. Scott Jones says, yes, the sponsorship money from the 4-figure camping gear they demo. Tolstoy 111, speaking of Nabokov, do you like Brian Boyd, 3-volume biography? Not particularly, no. It was a lot of info about something I didn't want any info about. If I'm remembering it correctly, it was. But I don't know why Nabokov is coming up here at all. Because uh, uh, Aaron says, lining up in the shower in a circle. Well, I don't know quite what you're referring to, but I'm only saying that they've got to be crossing each other's paths, right? There are only so many places that will let you camp overnight in that, within easy reach of the door, the showers, the gym, the toilet, whatnot. It's not like they're really roughing it. And if you're in an urban environment, You can't be the only person who has the idea to make money doing this. It just all feels so fake. It all feels so fake. Steve Bronstein says, "What do you think of Joseph Frank's Dostoevsky biography? It went on forever. It's just volume after volume of sheer misery." I recognize it as a testament to writing, to biography. Talk about being definitive. I didn't ever find it interesting to read, but it's the final word in documenting Dostoevsky. But enjoyable to read, which is for me the sine qua non. No, no, didn't do it at all. Uh, Ryan says, "Steve, did you enjoy Bourdain's bad novels before Kitchen Confidential broke out?" Thought they were bad, did you? Hmm. Sean G says, "LOL, have you ever tried methamphetamine? I just started doing it last week and it's amazing." No, no, I've never tried methamphetamine and I never will. I was only briefly curious about these two major drugs that I'd heard everything about. Uh, Scott Jones says, "The Arctic Patrol mystery, Hardy Boys, was my infection vector for reading as a boy." Was it really? Oh my. Tolstoy 111. Nabokov is one of my favorite 20th century writers, by the way. At Cornell, he taught and influenced Pynchon. Okay. Well, good to know. Good to know. No accounting for taste. Kevin J.N. These vans always have room for the traveling French press coffee machine and panini press. Exactly. And a million other things. They walk down, they squeeze down the middle aisle of their van. They pull out their food hamper and it's crammed with stuff. It's crammed with hundreds of dollars of ingredients for a three-course gourmet meal, which they then cook. Is it that somehow that is tapping into people's fantasy of that this is all just one cozy little contained world? Is that what it is? See, to me, the thing that would much more tap into that fantasy would be if there was a shower on the premises, which of course there never is. But I guess food maybe does it for a lot of people. Uh, uh, Street Medic says you should not experience bathroom life in an army barracks. Well, I experienced it in a Midwest dormitory and a Jesuit boarding school. I would imagine they're not much different. Hannah's book says, "Did you and Bourdain play Hardy Boys together?" Why do you have that in parentheses? You trying to disown it? Oh, well, Tony Bourdain alive and well in my chat. Ryan says, "I had a chef tell me Bourdain's books were bad. I didn't want to ask, have you read? Did you write? Maybe I should ask." Okay. Have you read Kitchen Confidential? Assuming I get to ask you people, have you read questions? I'm assuming everybody here has read Kitchen Confidential. I'm assuming. Frederick Zoller says, "What's your favorite Cormac McCarthy novel?" They all stink, like meat left out in the sun. Tolstoy 111. "So you don't see any value in Lolita as a prose poem. Lolita is not a prose poem. It's not a prose anything. No, it has no value whatsoever. None." Steve Bronstein, "I found Nabokov's book on Russian lit from his lectures entertaining. So did I." Aaron says, "Steve loves The Road. You should look up his videos on the book." Yes, just go to Google and type in Steve Donahue and The Road, and you'll get a sense of what my favorite Cormac McCarthy novel is. uh, Richard Reed says, "Love Nabokov's autobiography." It did. It was pretty good. I wouldn't pass that up if I found it for 50 cents at Listen up in Vermont. Ryan says, "Yes, have read KC." You can type it out. This isn't Twitter. You can type it out. "Highly entertaining. Was wondering about his pre KC books." Well, apparently a rival chef said they were bad. Uh, uh, Frederick Zoller says, "Have you read the latest Tefal air fryer instruction manual?" Okay. Well, I would say that this chat has probably run its course. This was a lot of fun on a nice, peaceful Sunday Steve stream. Just a peaceful Sunday Steve stream. No troubles at all. The week starts up tomorrow. I wonder how many of this is true for. Street Medic's probably on call, but a lot of you probably are in the same position that I am, where the world starts up tomorrow. So you get to enjoy the peace and quiet of the rest of today. Uh, Scott Jones says, "Yeah, my own Midwest dormitory experience isn't something I'm keen to relive." Oh, I'd relive it in a heartbeat. I loved it the first time, and I would relive it in a heartbeat. Del Bottom Blue says, "Steve, what do you think about Franklin series? I think there's too much French. Outlander series 2 is in France, but they speak English." I'm really curious. I'm sure you're talking about Michael Douglas's Franklin series. I'm really curious about it, but I'm not watching it because it's not Boy Kills World. Boy Kills World is all that I'm watching. Uh, that's all there is to it. So that's 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 all that I'm watching. So I haven't seen Franklin. It'll probably be gone by the time I do. Sean G says, "You were friends with Bourdain and Carl Sagan. Any other famous people?" I well, you're leaving out Julia Child and also my most famous snail mail correspondent. You're definitely leaving out my most famous snail mail correspondent. uh, uh, Frederick Zoller says, "God bless you, Steve. Thanks for answering my question. Best wishes to you." Street Medic says, "Bye, Steve. What are you reading tonight?" Uh, well, I just finished the introduction to this. This is a reprint of The Shield of Achilles with a long introduction. I finished the introduction. I'm going to sink myself into just a front to back reread of The Shield of Achilles. And this goes perfectly hand in hand with another thing that I'm just buried in. But this doesn't come out until June, this thing, a critical study of Auden uh, and the war that I'm just living inside it and talking about living inside something. Oh my God, I am totally living inside this thing. Just, just uh, the notes, the sources, every single reference, just so those are big. Those are a big part of what I'm reading tonight. Jared Henderson says, "I have a 10-month-old. I don't know what peace is." Well, you breeding wasn't my idea. Okay. Uh, Dorothy Satterfield says, "Speaking of kitchens, do you have any kitchen equipment in your kitchen or just books?" There is equipment in the kitchen. I don't ever use it. My surly houseboy uses it sometimes. I'm sure he can identify all of it. David Murphy learned his way around it when he was out there. I'm sure he knows it better than I do. There's equipment out there. I don't really know what it does. Uh, Tolstoy 111 says, "Okay, I'm curious what your aesthetic objection to Lolita. Don't say it stinks. It does stink. What? It's bad. It's thin. It's nonsensical. It's extremely posturing. It's and it stinks." Uh, JKL says, oh, JLK says, "Thanks for the stream, Steve. Have a wonderful night." Mark says, "I'm scared to ask if Steve knew Katharine Hepburn because I'll lose my goddamn marbles if he did. He probably ghost wrote her memoir." Now I know who ghost wrote her memoir, and I didn't know. But I didn't know her. No, not at all. Nope. I would venture to guess that my most famous snail mail correspondent was a bigger star than Katharine Hepburn. Sean G says, "Do you think Dunning Kruger effect works on people who like literature?" Oh, I I don't know what almost any of that means. People who like literature, what does that mean? Readers, you mean? So you're wondering if maybe somebody reads one part of one Dickens novel and thinks they know all about Dickens? I would imagine that's not true. I would imagine that readers would have enough self-awareness to know that there's a body of literature out there and that you can't claim that you've read it if you haven't. I would imagine that it would be immune. Michael Lombardo says, "I'm just home in time to say good night, all." Steve Bronstein says, "Do you think or know whether Bourdain committed suicide because of his lady friend or more due to general depression or something like that?" It was pretty complicated. I think he reached a point where he thought, and he was wrong. I think he reached a point where he thought, "I can estimate everything, every detail of what's coming, and none of it interests me." And that's wrong. And that's something that smart people are prone to. Less imaginative people, dumber people, are not prone to that particular rationale. And smart people are, and they're always wrong. I wish that they got the second part. They're always wrong about that. You can sit there on a pier in San Lucia and think all you want. that I know all of this and I know what it is and I know what to expect and none of it interests me. You can sit there on that pier all you want. You're not going to be able to imagine YouTube or Booktube. You're not going to be able to imagine anything like that. You don't know what's coming. So it's a bad idea. It's a bad decision. Michael Lombardo says, been lugging these bags of books all day. Yeah. Street Medic, it's my experience that people who read a lot more are more aware of what they don't know. Well, at the very least, you wouldn't make claims for it. I would think, at the very least, you wouldn't make claims for it. I would think, at the very least, like for instance, St. Augustine has come up a couple of times here. I would think that if you'd never read a biography of him, you wouldn't start talking about them like a true Dunning Kruger person would. Uh, Sean G says, I'm just saying I have people almost lecture me on literature when I know I've read way more than them. Something about it promotes peat entry. Oh, okay. Well, peat entry, definitely. Yes, yes. And I guess you're right. I've mentioned this before. The people who love so called precious, literary fiction, I've mentioned before that they are the most cloistered readers of them all. They don't read anything else and they barely read that. What they read is on such an incredibly narrow bandwidth. And they are, you're right, they are pedantically dismissive of everything else, even though they know nothing about it. So I see what you mean. That is true, definitely. Uh, Steve Bronstein says old age with a question mark. No idea what that means. Dorothy Satterfield says bigger star than Katharine Hepburn, male or female. I don't know why we're on this subject. I don't make any claims. I don't make any bragging claims like this. It has to be wormed out of me. Her name was Betty. That helps any. But anyway, anyway, it's 10 past the hour now. So we're going to wrap this up. This was 2 hours. This was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun. I always forget that. And the stream held up. Headphones and no headphones. The stream held up. So we will try this again. With headphones or without, we will try this again. And in the meantime, you can all feel free to look at my videos for today. I tried reviving last week in Booktube. We'll have to see if people like it. If they want to do, oh God, help us. All right, I've lost my hand again. It's just so I can't wave goodbye except with this one, but I'm gonna do that. We're gonna wrap this up. This was too much fun. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now. It was a few weird turns here and there, but that's all right. I expect that from a Stevestream, and I will be back because I haven't asked as many follow up questions as I want to ask about how you organize your books. That's not done at all. That subject is not done at all. But tomorrow will be different. It'll feel different, right? Tomorrow's Monday. There's been no traffic on the street here, no noises of any kind, no sirens, no hullabaloo at all, no mail, no delivery trucks running up and down the street, no nothing like that, no coming and going, no neighbors who are, they'd love to stop and play with Frida, but they're way too busy. No, nothing like that. It's just been a completely peaceful, quiet Sunday, gearing up for start of everything tomorrow. And that pattern holds true in the United States. That pattern holds true all the way to the end of May. In the end of May, there's a Monday that will be Memorial Day. So there'll be a long weekend then, but not until then. A long stretch between now and then where there isn't anything. It's just this pattern over and over again. So tomorrow will be the work day. Just be back to normal. I'll get tons of packages in the mail. I hope. I did a poor job last week with mail. I did some mail hauls, but I didn't cover a fraction of what I got. That's bad. That needs to stop. And there'll be editors back on the other end of the email. There'll be all sorts of nits to pick and things to do and whatnot. I'm just going to soak it up for the rest of the night. I'm going to close down this Stevestream, take the baby out, and then read all night long. I'm going to bother with writing. I'm just going to read for, well, what? 10 to 6, so 8 hours. I'm going to read just the whole time, just constant reading, rereading, and also reading. So there'll be a lot of both. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I will be back. Thank you, Booktube.